Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'll be talking about The Dead Eye by Rob Van Zyl and Simon McGregor, published by Pleasant Company Games. This is a solo game for ages 14 and up, which plays in about 15 to 30 minutes and has lots of really cool art in 3D actually, which is why I'm wearing these glasses. And before I start explaining how to play the game and share my thoughts on it, I'd like to ask you all to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That really does help the channel. And if you'd like to support what I do, there's also a Patreon page, and you can support me for as little as just €1 per month or more, and in return you will get early access to all of my videos, your name in the credits, and access to some Patreon exclusive videos that I post every month as well. Alright, let's start with setting up the game. To set up a game of The Dead Eye, put the board in front of you on the table. Take all the hope cards with this icon on the back, give that deck a shuffle, and then draw 5 cards and put them above the board over here, and put the remaining cards in a Ziploc bag along with the reserves card. Do the same for the strength card with this icon, shuffle that deck, draw 5 cards and make a stack over your board with this icon, and put the remaining cards in the reserves bag. Take your sat map card and put the clip on spot 0 over there, and you will be using this to keep track of which safe haven you've reached. Take the destination cards, and they are all numbered from 1 through 10, and you put those in numerical order and you put them over your board at this icon. Take all of the core cards, and that's the cards with this eye on the back. There's 14 of them. Shuffle this, and that will be your drawing deck. Optionally, you can use these 3D specs to get the 3D effect on all the cards and the board that this game has, but that is optional. You can use the reference card for the setup and the gameplay, so keep that close. And there's also a reference card with all the effects, showing all the icons that you can find on all these cards and what they do, and this card is double-sided. You can also optionally use the game box over your board to put the strength and the hope cards and the discard pile in the middle, but that is not really necessary. I usually put them just on the table like this. That's the setup, and now you're ready to play. The goal of The Dead Eye is to survive a journey through a wasteland, and you will be traveling through this deck of destinations, and along the way you will find safe havens which you can track using this sat map, and at every safe haven you can technically save the game, put the cards in Ziploc bags, and continue at a different time. And if you reach the 3rd safe haven, you win the game. And you will lose the game at any time if one of these decks runs out and you need to discard one of those cards then. So if, for example, if this deck is completely discarded, which will happen during the game, and there are no more cards left in this stack and you need to draw another strength card, then you lose the game. The same goes for the hope cards. And during the game you will find encounters, and the encounter cards will be placed in the middle here. So, for example, if we take a look at this card, every card in this deck can be an encounter, except for 2 event cards, which I will also explain in a bit. But you can see here there are some icons on this card. On the left are heat icons, and when this event is triggered, this is usually a negative outcome. And this is juice, the droplet icon over there, and that is usually a positive icon. And this will get you distance that you will need to travel, or items that you can use, all kinds of helpful things. And this is usually negative because here it says to discard 2 hope cards, and again, if that deck is empty and you need to discard another one, you lose the game. Now I'll get to the details of that in a bit. So this also has an icon in the top here. That means this is a heat card, and they are used to trigger the destination. So for example, if this was here and I draw a card that is a heat symbol, then I put that on the left, and that will add to this. So as the game progresses, you will draw cards, you will put cards down, and you will resolve these cards. So a little bit more about that. So let me just put these back for now. The first thing you will do is decide what card to play here. You can either play a card from your deck or a destination. So at the first step of the game, every round has these steps that you go through. You unlock a destination card. That's the first step that it says here. So these are my destination cards. I look at the top one and it says here to unlock this destination, I need 0 distance. Now obviously this is the first card that's going to be played as a target. So I don't have any distance yet. So this of course is the first card. It's going to be free. No distance in the distance stack. That's basically what this icon means. So I can flip this around and put it in my target destination zone, which is above these cards here, but you can't see that on the camera. So I'm just going to put it here for now. So this says, if I want to go here, I need 2 distance. That's what it says in the top here. All right. But I don't have that yet. So I'm just going to keep it in the target zone. So right now, all I can do is draw a destination, an encounter from the top of my deck. So that was this tunnel card. And again, I will explain these icons. So if you see a heat symbol with an X, that means that you discard a heat card. A symbol with this arrow means that you return it to the bottom of your deck. It's also referred to as postponing a card. So here's a couple more X's. This symbol, that's the distance symbol. Again, we've seen that before. And if I gain this card, I gain +1 distance. So that's an example of what can happen. So if this is played, I can now draw the next card. So this is a new encounter. That's phase 2 here. So fill the encounter slot with a card from the draw deck or an available destination. Now we've seen that the destination that we have right now isn't available yet because we need distance for it. So I get it from the draw deck. Then we check if we can resolve the outcome. And that's basically what you do. So can we resolve this? Well, no, there's no cards to the left or the right. So I draw a card, I press on. So this was what you do when you press on. You draw a card, you check the icon to see if it's heat or juice, and you put it on either side. So I put this one here because this is heat. Now I have 1 heat symbol. Does it trigger? No, because I need 2. Is there any choose? No. So I press on once again. Now at any time, I can decide before I draw a new card if I want to evade this. If this looks too dire to me, if I really don't want this to happen, I can say, okay, maybe I know what's in the deck. At some point, you'll learn what's in your deck. And there are items as well that will let you check your deck. More on that in a bit. But if I know this is going to be a bad outcome and I don't want that to happen, I can evade. And that means I simply put this card on either side depending on the icon. So I could put this here, but the heat will stay. So the next card is likely to trigger as well. So if I press on, I just draw another card. It's another heat card. So in this case, I put this here. So this triggers, right? Now this tells me to discard, that's the X, the first heat card. That's the top one. So this gets discarded. And then the second one is postponed. So that's returned to the bottom of my deck. All right, so I do that. I take this card, and I now know that the bottom card of my deck is a heat card. That's good information to have. So what happens then? Then I resolve the card, and that means 2 hope cards get discarded. There's nothing I can do about that. When this triggers, I take 2 hope cards and I discard it. Now, this is not necessarily bad because all hope cards have juice, all of them. All the strength cards have heat. So these are technically bad cards and good cards. Of course, I need to pay attention that this deck doesn't completely run out, because if I need to discard one of them, again, I lose. So now that this has been resolved, this card gets discarded into the discard pile as well. So now I check if I can unlock a new destination. This still hasn't been unlocked yet because I still do not have any distance over here. So I draw another card from the deck. This is the gap. It's a shortcut at full throttle. As you can see, you jump over a gap, but it fails with 1 heat, and that means I discard 1 strength card, and I need 2 juice to gain it, but I do gain 1 distance, and I kind of want to have distance, so I can play this. And you know, if I have to discard a strength card, I still have all 5 over there, so it's not too bad. So we'll see what this is. Maybe it's a juice. And it is. So this is a juice card. So I can put this over here. Now, do I want to evade or not? No, I'll just keep going. So I press on, draw another card. Oh yes, it's another juice. So I put this over here. So now, again, I check if the outcome can be resolved. There's no heat. You always check for heat first before you check juice. So no trigger here, but there is a trigger there. Again, the top one gets discarded in this case. So I take the top card and I discard it. The other one goes to the bottom of my deck. So now I know that the bottom card is juiced and the one before that is heat. All right, so that goes back. Then I resolve it and I get this card as distance. So I put it in the distance pile over here with the little cloud icon right there. So again, I unlock a new destination. This still isn't unlocked. I need 2. I have 1. So I draw a card from the core deck. Now this is one of the event cards that I was talking about earlier. So there's 2 in here. One of them is a negative one that says Tox. And it tells you to either discard a strength card, or unless my draw deck is completely empty, I can also instead lose juice to postpone this event. So if I have any juice over here, I can lose that. That means discard it. That's what the icon says right here. Discard a juice on that side, and you can tell that it's on the right because it's horizontal like that. So that's one of those cards, and this one gets returned to the bottom of the deck. But right now, I'll just resolve it. So this gets discarded, and I needed to discard a strength card. So a strength card, like I said, is always heat. It's a dune, but that is a card and can get me some distance. So it's not necessarily bad to have in my deck, because when my draw deck runs out, I take the discard pile, shuffle it, and that becomes my new draw deck. So by then, I'll have some strength and some hope cards in there, making my deck bigger. So I'm kind of deck building. And you can tell by the backs of these cards whether it's going to be heat or juice, which is also good to know. So I draw a new card. This is the other event card. So this is the rest event, which is good. This will let me untap any items, this icon, this wrench. That's the items that I will gain, and I will untap them so I can use them, because when you gain an item, they come into your rig, which is this icon underneath. That's my car, the rig, and I put the cards underneath the board here, and you put them in tapped when you gain them, and when you untap them with this card, that's when you get to use them. You can use them at any time. So I can also discard a hope to put it underneath the deck, but I'll just discard it for now. So I draw a new card. Still don't have enough distance for this. So here is a nice card. This one has a lot of distance, which is great. So I'm going to try and get that. But I know that I already used a couple of juice earlier. And this itself is a juice card. I mean, I can check the discard pile just to see what we did. So there's 1, 2 juice, 3 juice, and that is 4. Now your starting deck always has 14 cards, 2 of which are the rest and the Tox card that we already saw, which leaves 12 cards. 6 are juice and 6 are heat. So in this deck of cards, we have 2 juice left. And I know that the bottom one is juice because we put one back already. So all this is going to be heat. So it's important to remember. So since I know that this is very likely to be heat, I can evade this card and just put it over here instead. So now there is no destination. I still can travel here, so I just draw a new card. It is indeed a heat card. So I put that as my next destination. Again, I can avoid that if I want to, because again, I'm going to draw heat. What happens if this gets triggered? Well, I discard a hope card. I still have 3 left. And an item card, but I don't have an item yet. This card itself is an item. So if this destination gets unlocked, then I gain this item. The item is grip, and I can tap the grip card to postpone a juice. So that means if this is active, I can tap it and then take one of the juice cards on the right there and put it on the bottom of my deck, which can be handy. So gameplay continues like that until either you reach a safe haven by going through the destination deck, or you lose because one of these decks runs out and you need to draw from it. So, for example, let's say we've played a bit further and maybe this is a card that I gained at some point, so I have 4 distance, and let's put that back on the deck here. And maybe we've had unlocked this one as our new destination, and we gained that one. Let's say, because this doesn't have any heat, that means that if you play heat to this card, then nothing happens. Just nothing happens. So you can play heat, a whole bunch of heat here, until you have enough juice to unlock this. And then you get this as a map. And you can tap this map to discard the top card of the draw deck. So if I know what that is, and perhaps it's a heat card, or maybe it's a strength card that gets shuffled in later, and I don't want that to be drawn because it will trigger the next destination, I can put that in the discard pile. So let's say we gain that you get that tapped, like I said. So I need the rest card to untap any items that I get. Play continues again. So then the second card might be unlocked. So what do we need for this? We need further than 2 distance. So if at this point I had these 2 cards, that is 4 distance. So I unlock this and I put it in my target zone. So here we go. This is a card, an outpost, that needs 3. So if this is in my target zone over here, again, I'll put it over here, and there is no destination right now, I can check my distance. I have 4. So this can be placed if I want to. Again, that's optional. You can, every time if this is unlocked, you can choose to play a destination from the target zone or the top card of your deck as a destination. So if I play this, again, I can see what happens. Well, this is a heat. We already knew that. So if that happens, this triggers. This means the heat gets discarded. So I'll do that. And a hope card gets discarded. So I'll do that as well. And I failed to do this card. Now, whenever a destination card is triggered and it's the bad outcome, you can't discard it to the discard pile because this is not one of the cards that goes in your deck. It simply goes back to the target zone. You fail to reach it, you can try again later. If you did unlock the positive side here, this becomes an item, the nav right here, and the nav can be used to scan the next 3 cards of the draw deck. This icon means that you can look at the top card, and there's 3 of them. So you look at the top 3 cards and you put them back in the same order and you tap this card. Again, if you gain this, it comes into play tapped already. So then the next one unlocks if the map is in the rig. Well, that was the first card, the destination card that we got. So I can unlock this, and this needs 9. But here is the first safe haven. That's the domed building over there. So if I find this, I need 2 juice to get there. I get the safe haven, and that's when I can save my game, unless I just want to play on. But if I fail it and it only needs 1 heat, then I lose a distance. Then I was led the wrong way and I need to find it again. And that's bad because, you know, you're collecting distance, and if the top card has a lot of distance, then I have to discard that and then put this back into the target zone. There are other cards that do that as well. This is a different kind of negative card. For example, here, the positive side doesn't do anything, so it just gets discarded. But the negative side tells you to subtract 1 from your distance. So this has the cloud, so that goes into your distance pile. So now I have 3 distance instead of 4. So what happens when I reach a safe haven? So let's just take a quick look at the deck here and just add some distance. So that's 6. Here's a +5. Maybe we had that one as well. So we have 5 + 6. That's 11 distance. This got unlocked. We played this as a destination. And just let's say that we managed to make it there with these 2 cards. There we go. And this is still in my deck. And perhaps this got shuffled back into my deck as well. So everything is back. My hand ran out. And I had to shuffle all of these cards back in. Now again, you can tell by the back of the card what it is. You don't know what these are. These can be positive or negative, heat or juice. But this is heat and this is juice. You know that. So that's good to know. So when you shuffle your cards, try not to look at it because you'll know, oh, well, if I put this one down like that, I'll start with a juice. So try not to look when you shuffle and just put it down at a given point. And that will be your next draw deck. But again, for the example here, let's say I play 2 juice here. These get discarded when this triggers. There's no heat, so I can trigger the positive effect. These get discarded right there. I take this card, and now I gain this safe haven. So that is when I can save my game. I can just play on. I can just put that here, or maybe put it next to it. Doesn't really matter, because it doesn't have any distance itself. Now, when that happens, I need to do a couple of things. First of all, I need to reset all of my cards. So I'll put this to the side. I'll take all of these cards. I'll check them. So these are all core cards. These are heat cards. Juice cards, the hope ones. I'll put those back on the stack. So that happens every time you reach a safe haven. You completely reset your deck again. There we go. And that goes there. So these are again my original 14 cards here, and these as well. These are destination cards which have been played. Those simply go away. You don't keep those items. These are also core cards. Then you take your sat map, you put the arrow at the first safe haven because you reached it. So that's your next step then. You take all of the previous cards from the previous trip. So you have this one, 1, 2, and 3. Those are done. Those get discarded. They are put into a Ziploc bag with the retired cards. So you have a retired baggie for all the cards that you don't need anymore on the next phase. You take your 5 hope cards and your 5 heat cards. You give them a shuffle again. You randomly pick one of those to discard. Those also go into the retired bag. Then, once again, you take the rest of the hope and the strength cards that you kept apart. You can keep those in a reserved Ziploc bag. There's a reserved card here with a Ziploc bag, so you can keep those in there. Then you randomly draw one from both of these decks, and without looking at them, you put those in their respective decks, give that a shuffle, and then those decks are ready. So basically, every time you reach a safe haven, 1 strength and 1 hope card gets randomly removed and a new one gets randomly added. Now, if you want to save your game right there and play again on a different time, just take the Ziploc bag with the paused card in it and just take your core cards and the new hope and strength deck and the destination cards and put them in here, and that's your save game. And the next time when you start again, you simply take them out, give them a shuffle, put them in their respective spots, and then you look at your first destination here. So the start of the run and have reached the first safe haven, which we did because we marked that on our sat map. That was the previous time we played. So we can unlock this. This is the next step of the run. This only needs 1 distance. When we don't have any distance, again, same as before. So instead of placing that into the destination, I draw the top card of the deck and we have a new destination. And this has a +2, which is great. We could use that to get to the ruin. And you simply continue playing like that until either you reach the final destination or you game over. So let's take a look at these icons then, just to recap. I think we've seen most of them. So again, this icon, that's the safe haven icon. This is the distance symbol. This is the delay symbol. We've seen that as well. That subtracts from your distance. The wrench here, that's parts, the parts that you put in your rig, and again when you gain them they're tapped. And the rest card, the event card that's in the deck, will have you untap all of them so you can use them, and you can use them at any time, even when you draw. So let's say for example we have this, and we have, well, this is a positive card, this is a positive card. Let's look for a heat here. So let's say I have a card that will let me postpone heat, or maybe even lose heat. So here, for example, this is a hope card, and if I gained that item in a previous run, and I have this and it's untapped, then I can tap this cell to lose heat. So let's say, for example, that I have this in my rig and it was untapped. I rested at some point and I draw the next card. Well, this is again a positive card. I'm having a lot of luck here. This is the Tox card. So I draw this, but I really want to have that distance. So I draw this and I know, well, this is going to be heat, so that's going to trigger the negative effect. I can at that point simply use this card. So at any point during the game you can do that. You can tap it and then you lose a heat. So you lose the heat that's already on the board, not this one, because that's not already on the board. I just drew that. So I will discard this and then of course play the one that I drew. So that's perfectly legal. So back to the symbols, there's also a card that protects you from a certain effect here. It says it protects you from discarding hope. So there's, for example, this card, that's also a hope card that has that symbol on it. So if I gain this, and it needs a lot of juice there, then I gain this as an item, the mex, or a hex, it's a hex, and I can tap that to prevent losing one hope this turn. So whenever a card forces me to discard a hope or multiple hope, I can tap this to prevent one from being discarded. So this icon here says to discard the top card of the draw deck. That's the little X for discarding. This is the eye again, so you scan the top of the draw deck. We saw that as well. The little arrow with any symbol means that you postpone a card, and that means you take that card and put it on the bottom of your draw deck. On the back there's more. So X again means discard. This is the hope symbol, so you lose one hope, you lose one strength. And gaining strength means that you add a strength card to the top of the strength deck from the cards in the reserves. And the same of course goes for the hope cards. This means you lose a distance card from your distance pile. This is losing a part from your rig, and you can choose which one. This is deactivating, so that means, you know, you tap it so it can be used. I mean, it also says so in the cards themselves that you can tap them to use them. This is activating them again, so you untap them, and the 3 dots is repeat the effect, which we saw on the rest card. If I can find it again, here it is. So the rest card here tells you to untap all the items in your rig, because you can repeat until you've untapped all of them. And this also says unless your draw deck is empty, you may also instead lose hope to postpone this event. So if you still have all your cards untapped for whatever reason, you haven't used them yet, and you come across this card and you don't want to use this, you want this back in your deck, then you can also choose, as long as your draw deck isn't empty, to just discard one of these, which might help you in the future, and then instead of playing this, putting it back on the bottom of your deck, which might be helpful, because, you know, before you reach that card again, you can still use these cards, you know, tap them, and then when you get the rest card, you can untap them again. And then finally, there's this lightning bolt, which is a special effect that's normally explained on the card itself. And another thing that's not explained on this effects card is if you have the plus symbol with a heat or a juice, that means you add a heat or a juice to the current board without actually adding a card. So you just remember that there's one more, and that can trigger an outcome. And that is how you play the Deadeye. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on The Deadeye by Pleasant Company Games. First of all, I'd like to thank Rob Van Zyl for donating a copy to review. Very much appreciated. Really liked playing through this game. Let's start with the components. So the components are pretty good. The box is nice and sturdy. It's pretty compact. It's not much bigger than it needs to be. Technically, you can see here, there is a bit of filling in the box. But it is functional because, as you can see, it has these strength and hope symbols on it and the discard pile symbol in the middle, which means you can use this on the table to put your hope and your strength cards, which you would put on top of the game board here normally over it. And you do need a bit of room for the glasses there, the 3D glasses. So you get two of these, which you can, of course, wear along with a friend who might be watching along and helping you, so you can play this together with someone, even though it's strictly technically a solo game. But you can play this together, so you get two of these. And if you're already wearing glasses like I am, they thought of that as well. They have this one, and this is also 3D glasses, but with a kind of like a clip on, so you can just slide that in front of your eyes behind the glasses, and it will just hang on the ears of your glasses like this, and that works as well. Just make sure that the red lens is on the left, otherwise the depth will be the other way around than intended. So this works as well, and I really do appreciate that they added this because I do need my glasses to play the game. The cards are of a good quality and nice and thick quality, of a good size, so you can easily see what's on them. So that's good as well. And I do like the board. It's just a small little board here where you put your cards, but it does help to indicate what cards go where with all the icons. You don't strictly need a board, but I do like the fact that it has this cool art on it, and it does tell you, you know, juice cards go on the left, heat cards go on the right. This is where you put your strength, your hope, your discard pile, your target locations where you need to go, and your distance cards. And this, the bottom, is where your rig is, basically your car, your vehicle, and that's where you put the cards, your items that you can use. So it's fun. It does look nice. It's a good, decent quality board as well. You also get a little clip that also helps with keeping track of where you are on the sat map, going from safe haven to safe haven. I do like that they added a little comic book. So they have this little comic book that's also in 3D. Everything in this game has this stereoscopic 3D effect, which is really cool. So there's a little bit of a story here of what happens before you start on your journey, and I do like that. Basically, a spaceship crashes, you see that happening, and you step into your rig and you head on a journey to go there because that's your ticket out of here. So components are very good. The artwork is amazing. I really, really like this art style. Rob Van Zyl illustrates all of his games and has a very specific style, and I do love that. It's just super cool. We've seen it in previous games like Ancient Terrible Things, and that was certainly something that attracted me to the game. That was the art, and it's did that for this game as well. And all of these cards have just some really, really cool art on them. And it's only half of the card really, but also the icons and everything that's on the cards is done in that same very recognizable style by Rob Van Zyl. And everything, like I said, is in 3D, so that's pretty cool. You get this little bit of a depth effect like you would have from those lenticular cards as well a bit. It kind of looks like that when you're wearing the glasses. So that's really cool. I do love the art. The theme is also really nice. It's this post-apocalyptic world, this moon or whatever it is that you're on, and you're trying to get off by means of the crashed spaceship, and you're just scrounging together whatever you can find to get there. And that is just really cool. It feels like Mad Max, you know, and everything. The art also has that theme. So yeah, I do enjoy that. In this case, it does add a bit to the gameplay because you're kind of immersed into the story. It is a solo game, so you're going on that journey. And yeah, I think the theme works really well for this game. Now, the gameplay. I really enjoyed this. Well, you're basically playing just a couple of chapters, right? You're playing 3 chapters going from safe haven to safe haven, and these destination cards basically tell you the main storyline. So the main things that are gonna happen, because you're going through this in order. These are all numbered 1 through 10. So you start with the first card. You don't need any distance for it, obviously, because you're just starting. It unlocks automatically. And there's the wreck, right? And I also love how they wrote this. This is just R-E-K, a wreck. And he does that for many cards in many games even. So it has these cool... there's a rocket, just rocked. And just, I don't know, a den. There's a Hulk, which is also basically a big shipwreck. Something neon, a Zepp for a Zeppelin. There's a ruin. It's all like 2 or 3 letter words. Well, outpost. there's one that's longer. But yeah, it's just really fun. So you're going through all of these cards in order. And on your journey there, you have lots of encounters. I like that you have these choices, right? You have these in your hand, and there's an equal number of heat and juice at the start of the game. And you start adding more cards. So as you go, at points you have to discard hope and strength cards. And hope cards are always juice, and they get discarded. So when your draw deck is empty, you shuffle your discard pile, and those come into your draw deck. So you're basically deck building a little bit. There's a bit of deck building going on. But the strength cards, when they get discarded, they add heat, which is usually negative. But it's not always negative to have to discard these. Now there's 5, but you know that when you have hope in the discard pile, those cards are going to be juice, and you can recognize them because of the icon on the back. You know when you draw this card with the wings, that's going to be juice. But you also know if I draw a strength card, that's going to be heat. So that helps in a way. So discarding those piles is both bad and good. And you kind of have to weigh your options. You know that if you run out, it's game over. So sometimes you have to push your luck with cards and just hope that, you know, the preferred outcome of that encounter is going to happen. So it's also a bit of a memory game. You need to remember just how much juice cards and how much heat cards are in your deck, and hopefully also when they're gonna turn up. Now again, these 2 cards, you can plainly see what they are, but the starting cards that are always in your deck with the eye, you don't know what that's gonna be. But sometimes a encounter makes you put the card back on the bottom of your draw pile. That's something you need to remember. That's gonna get a bit more tricky as you play more and more, because of course you're going to try and remember as many cards as you can. That gets a bit tricky, of course, in the long run, but I like that. It's a fun little mechanism. I also like the fact that once you reach one of the safe havens, you can save. So those decks are going to change a little bit every time you reach a safe haven with a randomly drawn card, so you never know what exactly you're going to encounter. So that keeps the game fresh, you know, that changes up the game just a little bit. Replayability then it's okay. I don't think it has a huge replayability because it's just the cards that you get in the game. There's not a whole lot of them. Like I said, you have a bunch of extra cards. You only draw 5 hope and 5 strength cards for your game, and then there's still plenty, about 6 or 7 are left that get randomly shuffled in. So those decks are going to be different every time, and then after every safe haven you take one out, you shuffle a new one in. So that changes up the game every time you play. So that's good. That adds to the replayability. But it is, in the end, once you've seen all the cards, you pretty much know what to expect. And once you get really familiar with the cards, it's getting a lot easier to make decisions as well. So I guess that at some point you'll probably be done with the game. But I do think that will take a while. It'll take plenty of playthroughs until you're so familiar with the game that you might think, okay, this has been fun. I'd like a new challenge. So the replayability is pretty good, but since it's a solo game, you're only playing this by yourself with the cards in the box. I feel that there is an expiry date on it in the long run. But it is certainly something that will last for a good while if you enjoy solo games. Then lastly, there's the language dependency. So there is text on all of these cards, but technically you don't need it because everything is explained with icons. So you don't need to know what the card says if you know what the icons mean. Then again, of course, when learning what all those icons mean, you do have an English rulebook. So all of those icons are explained. There's even an example of play, but here is a page with all of these icons. There's even a card here that has all the icons as a handy reference, but of course they are explained in English. This card has English text on it. So if you want to play this and you're not very good at the English language, you will have to find a good translation of the rulebook in order to play it. But otherwise, technically the game is language independent, so there's a plus there. In the end, I found this very enjoyable. I played this a lot during my lunch breaks, also at work. So it is very enjoyable, and I do like the 3D effect that this game has as well. It's just really cool, and that combined with the amazing art, I am definitely giving this a 2 thumbs up. It is very enjoyable. If you enjoy a solo game as well, check this out. If this video was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up. Might help you decide whether this game is for you or not. Please also subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thanks again to Pleasant Company Games for donating game to review, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.